We are primarily a web press type of printer. There are different types of printing. I'm sure you guys are kind of studying this. Sheet fed versus web press. Web press is more conducive to newspapers, magazines, anything that's being printed from a roll of paper versus cut sheet, and you've heard the term sheet fed. All that is all cut sheet. Does anyone have any experience in printing or any background in printing? Okay, so you did a little bit? Okay. So this is kind of new for most of you guys. Some of the terminology, if I say something, it's kind of second nature to me. If you don't understand any of the terms that I've used, just, speak up or anything. What we'll do is we're going to go out that door and head out to the press room. Watch out for any forklifts or anything. One of the problems that we are experiencing right now is we have actually grown over the last few years despite the economy, and we are just crammed into this building. Everything is really tight out there. We've got a lot of paper columns, stacks of paper rolls, so we're going to be kind of weaving in and out. One of the things that you'll see about our shop versus a lot of other shops is we aren't exactly the cleanest and most organized, and frankly that's kind of comes with the territory of being a web printer. It's actually very dirty by its nature. The fact that you're doing newspapers, you don't have a lot of people out there that spend all day washing their hands. They're actually getting dirty. Some of our pressmen, they look like Pigpen from Peanuts. I mean, they are just absolutely filthy. But it's the end result, it's the printed product that looks good. We kind of don't really necessarily care that we don't have the cleanest floors in the business, but we do care about the product that actually walks out the door. So that's kind of what our focus is. So especially when you go to like Las Vegas Color or some other print shop, you're going to see them. They got nice clean floors, well painted. Frankly, we don't have people to spare to worry about as much housekeeping because we're very production oriented. So I guess that being said, we'll head on out. First press that we're going to see is actually a 29-inch Komori sheet fed press. So what we've got here is a 29-inch press. It's 29 inches wide. We have 5 printing units, and then we have a coating unit so that we can put on like an aqueous coating that will help protect the print after it's been finished. Let's pass a few of these around. So you can see that what we're doing is we are printing on a cut sheet that's eventually going to be printed on the back side, and it's all going to be folded down into a signature, mating with about 12 other signatures in order to make about a 150-page book. So this is referred to as the feeder. What it's doing is it's got suckers that vacuum up the paper one at a time and then put them on through into the press. It has little side guides so that as the paper is rising up, it's kind of getting jogged a little bit, and then it's going into some stops, and that's what continues it through the press. That gets rid of static electricity. Helps keep the static electricity out. If we get too much static electricity, the paper will have a tendency to stick together. So it kind of helps give the electricity a place to discharge.
Is that copper?
Yeah, copper wiring. We call it tinsel.
What's the moisture for?
Humidity. We're in the desert right now, so obviously you guys know that. Paper likes to be moist, and it actually runs a little bit better. We have a dryer underneath here, so as the paper is printed on, it goes through a dryer, which will suck out even more moisture out of the paper. So what we do is we kind of try to keep this area as high humidity as possible.
So it's like a humidor.
Exactly. Although, we're kind of fighting the fact that we have open bay doors, we're in a very open space, Some press rooms will have their sheet beds more enclosed so that you can control the humidity a lot better. So what we're doing is we're printing the different colors on the units: cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and then we have a fifth color over here that sometimes we'll put on a spot color or we'll bump a color, do a metallic or a PMS color if you're familiar with PMS colors. It's a little hard to talk out here. So the paper comes on through, and then we have a dryer down here, and it is literally dried by heat.
How long does it take to dry?
Pretty much instantly.
What's the light coming from down there?
Fire, actually.
Fire down there.
Actually heating coils.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's heat that dries the paper.
Okay.
So as you can see, this is referred to as the delivery end. And right now he's kind of going a moderate speed. He can go a lot faster. Marcos, what is your top speed? He can go up to 15,000 sheets an hour.
What's 15?
What?
What's it set at right now?
Mark, what are you set at right now?
13.6.
13.6, yeah, okay. Let's see, right there, yeah.
Is there, if he goes at maximum speed, does that sometimes cause a problem?
It can cause registration problems. It can cause color problems. Sometimes a lower speed will give you better color, better control.
What's he doing over there? What's he doing?
That is how he adjusts his ink settings. So we'll talk about it once we go into the computer room, but the ink keys here are remotely set from the prepress. So, but they're set, but they're coarsely set, just kind of roughly. They're more, he does a lot of fine tuning here. This is our bindery area. We're doing a course catalog. Rich, can I get a couple of copies? Actually doing some course catalogs for UNR.
You guys printed the whole thing too, right?
Exactly. So what we did, we printed these sections here on the big web press over there, and then we printed the sheet fed cover. So what they're doing is, as you can see, they're falling down onto the back, nesting the sections with the cover going on top. You can see over here, we have a stitcher head that is putting two staples in. It's coming up here, getting cut, and then it's being stacked over this direction.
What's that for?
Which one? This right here? Or which part?
The radio.
The radio, entertainment. That's the best part. This is Rich. He's our prepress, or he's our bindery manager. Excuse me.
Do these rotate through multiple times to get stacked up like that?
Do they what?
Does it rotate through multiple times?
No, just one time, then it comes over here to a stacker, and then from the stacker directly onto the skid. Well, we're going to let's go take a look at the big press over there. can see how it's actually getting cut. All the paper waste is going down here and then going up to our roof to get baled.
I would know about that. We've been on your roof.
You have?
Yeah, never hard roofing. You guys get leaks.
Badly. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're about to have our roof redone.
Now time.
Yeah, I know. Bad shape.
I'd get off work early for this.
Now this is a Goss Community web press. Let me get you a book real quick.
Can I keep one of these?
Yep. This is where it's hard to talk here. Come down and see this. So what they're doing is they're putting in blue ink, magenta ink, yellow ink, and then black ink at the very top. We're printing on both sides of the paper at the same time.
Step on one ear. I got it.
What's that? Yeah, well, it's a little hard to even hear anything in here.
This guy's got to wear ear protection here?
Yeah, they usually have earplugs in. After a while, you get used to the noise, so it's actually almost like a background noise. Doesn't disturb you nearly as much. You guys want, we can walk back over there towards the folder so you can see how the folder, how all the webs come together and is being
If a sheet of paper breaks.
stop the press and re-web.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll stay out of your way. So you can see it's picking up more webs as it's going along. All the webs are coming down and then going into a folder and then getting cut.
So it's coming from this end and this end.
Right. And then they're all coming down, they're merging onto the platen and into the folder.
Where's the ink? Where do you put the ink?
Actually on the other side of the building. See these pipes coming across? Those are our ink pipes.
Oh, okay.
So we have them out on the other, against the other wall, and then they're pumped in.
What's coming through the pipe? Ink. How many copies can you print out an hour?
I think we can do around 18,000, 20,000 an hour.
That's a lot of money for you guys.
Can be, as long as we can keep it moving.
You guys ever print out any, like, low, in our class, we've got to find a high, a low, and a medium resolution pictures. You guys
Right.
ever print out any low?
Yeah, all the time.
I'm finding a hard time finding a low resolution picture.
Go on the internet.
Print one out from there?
Yeah.
It won't let us. We got to find it in magazines and stuff.
Go find a high school newspaper.
High school?
Yeah, they're really bad.
All right. All right.
Or actually, even like the college newspaper.
College? Oh,
yeah.
theirs?
Yeah, they use a lot of low-res stuff.
All right. Thanks for the tip, man.
Exactly. So these are referred to as core highs.
What's that?
These are referred to as core highs.
4 high.
A core high, exactly. 4 units stacked on top of each other, 4 high. While those are single core units, these are 4 highs. Each of these 4 highs cost about $250,000. Each one. So you got about $500,000 right there.
Are both of these working in conjunction
Yes.
to make one product?
Right.
All of these right here?
Everything. All of these are actually coming together to make the one publication. You can see that, well, the first side over here is actually the cover, which I don't have a copy of. Hang on. The first one over here is actually printing the cover, the back, and the very center. The second side there is printing that web, which is this, and on the inside, that. And then that side over there, that other 4 high is printing another web of color, and then the 4 units are printing all the black pages. So that as the pages come together, everything should fall in the correct order, getting folded and trimmed.
So a lot of the publication gets discarded.
We have a lot of waste, yeah. Yeah.
What do you do with all the waste?
That tube going up right there, all of the paper goes into the tube. We have a baler on the roof, and it chops the paper up into real fine like confetti, and then bales it into like bales of hay, and then we sell it back to a recycler.
So you get a count. Since you discard it, you kind of just count it as they come in.
Right. Well, what they do is they have a counter up there, so they know how many good copies are coming out onto the counter there.
Over there.
Yeah. See the counter and the stacker right there? They actually have a little counter right there, so they know how many good copies are coming out.
So what are these guys checking for? Like, they just make sure that nothing's malfunctioning? or-
Exactly. Well, what they've got to do is they've got to make sure that all the printing plates on the color are aligned, that all of the webs themselves, as they're being printed, are actually aligned with the cutter and the folding. So you'll actually see we got little targets right up here, little crosshairs. That crosshair should be exactly at the center fold and at the center cut. In this case it is. So what they'll see is if they're off just a little bit, they'll make a little adjustment. They'll either retard or advance the unit so that it is targeting right at the cut and the fold. They also will use the center mark. No, we don't have it on this one. They'll also use the center mark in order to make sure that all of the colors themselves are in register. If they weren't, I'm sure you guys have seen a newspaper where the image looks very blurry, and that is an out of register. What it is a color on one of the color plates is slightly out of coordination with the other color plates. So as the web is kind of coming through, it prints say the blue image in a slightly different position than the magenta, the yellow, and the black, and so therefore you get kind of like a little slurring, kind of an out of register. If you ever take a look at a newspaper and you see that it's kind of fuzzy looking, more than likely it's bad press work.
So even at that speed, they can get a good visual of when it's not centered?
Exactly. See, what it is, they're looking at it to see where it is at that point in time. These are pneumatics right here that can either adjust or retard, advance, move side to side, are units. So when they make a movement, they will actually see the movement in probably about 30 seconds. They'll actually go over there, grab another copy, and see you know, did I move it enough? Do I need to bring it back a little bit? And then they'll make another adjustment. It's kind of like a little time lag. So these guys are really good at what they do. Despite, you know, how dirty everything looks, the product that comes off and walks out the door is usually very, very good, very clean.
So do they have to make those adjustments all through the whole thing?
Yeah, exactly.
All of
There is no such thing as when you're printing, you're up and you're running and you never have to look at it again. Especially on newspaper work, you're always fighting the adjustments because you'll have it all set, and then as the tension on the paper, as it starts to unroll and gets into a smaller web, smaller roll diameter, the tension will change. So therefore, they'll have to, you know, come in and make more adjustments. They always have to stay on top of it. So it's a constant battle.
Right.
But I really do have to say that these guys are very good at what they do, and I've worked at other web houses before this one, and the quality that we produce here with the equipment that we've got is very, very good.
Is this the best equipment, or are you guys looking to upgrade? Or?
Actually, this is, some of our floor units are close to 30 years old. They were built back in the 70s. These two units here are early 1990s. That 4-high back on that side is probably mid-80s. So we've got some old equipment around here.
That's pretty cool. They all still work.
Yeah, well, it all has to do with the maintenance. You know, making sure that it's all the same manufacturer, so they were made to work together. But it's making sure that, you know, we're keeping up on our weekly, monthly maintenance schedules. That they're making sure that all the gears are always tight. They will come in and work on weekends just to overhaul a unit so that that doesn't interfere with our production Monday through Friday.
Do you ever have a like emergency situation where a unit will just go down?
Absolutely. We have been down, the longest that I've ever seen us down was about 2 days. Yeah, and that usually is more because of electronics than anything else. What might happen, we had a situation where, you were the roofing guy? Yeah, we ended up getting a leak. Water got down onto our motors and blew out a circuit board. And we had to have the circuit board FedExed in. That took us about 2 days to take care of.
But you blame the roofers anyway?
Yeah, we try. No, mechanically, you know, we might have a unit go down and all they do is basically they're able to move to a different unit or reconfigure the press so that we might print in multiple sections and then put it together in our bindery.
$25,000 an hour.
25?
25.
Okay. So we can actually run faster on here than we can on the sheet bed.
Yeah. Double.
Right.
More than double.
Yeah, pretty close to double. So Rob here is our press supervisor. He's the department head. So he's in charge of everything that goes wrong out here. You soon learn in this industry that when you're in charge, that just means you get the blame for everything that goes wrong. You don't get the benefit, you get the blame.
Every guy that's stacking in here 5 years. That guy right there.
But Extreme Graphics, they're the ones who
We have our night shift guys in here.
That's cool. You know that you mentioned earlier through the bad economy that you guys have seen some. What's it doing now? Just like cooling off, or?
Well, what they're going to do is they've just finished this run, so they're going to break down all of the webs, take off all the plates, put on plates, and re-web the job for the next job.
All right.
So the next job will probably be a little bit smaller, so they might not be pulling from this side. They may only pull from one side over there.
All right. This is the brake area, right?
Yes, it is. Now what we'll do is, say if the press run is like, I believe that was 15,000, we'll probably actually end up printing 16,000, and a lot of those extras will make it to the customer even though they didn't pay for it. It's kind of, think of it like a, customer service.
Right.
While we've got them, instead of just throwing them away, we go ahead and give them to the customer.
While we're on your roof, we'll fix anything in that area, even though it's that only that 1 minute.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are a couple of print shops in town that if you go in and you buy 10,000, you get exactly 10,000, and that's it. But we kind of feel that it's more important to take care of the customers. It's more the intent of what they're trying to do is they're trying to publish a newspaper. So if we can help them out, give them a few extra copies, and so be it. Right. You can see here, this is our plate box. These are jobs that are waiting to go to press. So one of the things I'd said earlier is that we are actually holding our own in kind of a tough economy, and as you can see right here, this the larger plates. These are the Goss Community plates right here. This is actually a college out of Arizona that we're doing their course catalog for. So this is, you can see that this is the size of plate. If I can get this separated. Here, if you want to kind of pass that around. Sharp edges, so please be careful. This is the type of plate that is actually out there. If someone else wants to grab that. That's the type of plate that is actually out there on the web press. It's 8mm aluminum sheeting that is, in the old days they were photosensitive. These are more sensitive to a certain wavelength of ultraviolet light, a UV light. So what we'll do is, this is our machine here over here that makes plates, and what we'll do is we'll open it up and we'll actually image a plate so you guys can see the laser making the plate. These other plates here, which are a little bit thicker and a little bit smaller, these are the plates that we'll actually use out there on our sheet fed press. Probably a little bit more durable. Same image, same manufacturer plates, just kind of a different size, different configuration. And they have a slightly different way of putting it on their press. And you can also see that this would be an example of what the press proof would look like. We make this on a wide format inkjet printer. We've gone through great lengths to calibrate the color so that we know that when we see it on this sheet of paper right here, that this is exactly what it should look like when it's coming off the press. And we'll show you that here in a little bit.
Somebody's fired.
Well, no, actually, the plant manager just jumps up and down and gets everybody angry. So it's pretty hard to get fired from around this place, which is kind of a well, it's kind of a good thing. What's that?
Thus, you've been here 21 years.
Exactly, because they should have gotten rid of me a long time ago, let me tell you. Okay, we're kind of doing this a little bit backwards because we had the opportunity to go out there and actually see the web press run. Does anyone have any, before we kind of get back into here, does anyone have any questions about how the web press was operating? I don't know if you guys noticed the machines on the end that looked like very large roll stands. Those were actually flying splicers. They weren't really operating as splicers for this run since the run was only 15,000, it was kind of short. But what they do is they can put a roll of paper up top and a roll of paper down at the bottom. And for longer runs like a UNLV course catalog where we're doing 100,000 copies, what it'll do is as the top paper roll runs out, it will kind of buffer. You saw that some of the paper was kind of going like that. It'll buffer the paper, stop the roll, splice another roll onto the paper as it's staying stationary, kind of glue it on, and then it will then start rolling out again. So they can actually change rolls without stopping the press. It's kind of a nice little feature. I know some of you guys heard this when I was out there. Our press is kind of an odd configuration. Some of the units are newer, some of them are older. The two 4-highs down on that side were manufactured in early 90s. The one single 4-high on this side was manufactured mid 80s or so. Most of our floor units are mid 1970s models, so they're close to 30 years old. So we've got kind of a combination of older and newer, plus we've outfitted it with pneumatics so that they can control everything actually from that control panel. One of those 4-highs out there costs about $250,000. So that press right now, if you wanted to probably put it in new, would be in the area of about $2 to $3 million, brand new. So, you know, a little bit of an undertaking. So. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We're actually in a very good situation right now, as opposed to a lot of printers. Almost all of our equipment is actually all paid for. And that's where I don't know if you know how many printers have gone out of business in this town right now, but a lot of them financed all of their equipment. They were very leveraged, you know, with their capital expenditures, and they got into a situation where they just couldn't keep up their payments. And so they ended up closing their doors. One of the advantages that we've got is almost all of our equipment in this plant right now is paid off. And so we're
All profit now.
well, yeah, close, but you know, yeah, exactly. Okay, this is called a Saber. It is manufactured by Fuji, and this is our plate maker. Everything interfaces from our computer room in there, which I'm sure you guys saw through the glass window. Everything is ripped, which I'll show you some rips when we get in there. Everything is ripped, funneled through this computer over here, which is referred to as a shooter. The shooter then shoots the information over here into our control, which we have a little hard drive on here, which will then image the plate. I have bypassed the safeties, so actually I don't want to do this one. You can kind of see that we have sets of rollers. Well, tell you what, best way to show you. There we go. This is referred to as a drum plate setter. So we have a cartridge of plates in here. The plate, once a job is sent through, a plate comes through, is dropped down into the drum. This is the laser right here. We have a spinning mirror inside of there. That will image, the laser will image the plate via the spinning mirror, and then we have a it's referred to as a traverse. What it does is it actually then has another mirror that puts the laser on the plate. Let me send a plate, I'll be right back. You guys can actually see the plate in operation. That is the cyan plate that is being sent. When we send the magenta plate, which goes on the red unit, the wording turns to red. Kind of a little indicator so we can at a glance know what plate is actually being sent. So as the progress bar is coming over, we know that the data is being sent from my server in there out to the shooter, which is, as we've got like a little spinning wheel right here, which is the image being spooled to a hard drive inside the machine. Soon as the spooling is finished, it will take a plate. You can actually see on that black cassette back on the table, that is what a plate cassette looks like. We'll load up our plates in here, load them into the plate bay, and it should be just about done. There we go. Everything's going to start spinning up.
It's going to drop the plate in there?
Yes, you will hear this thing click, whir, grind, and bump, and sound like it's about to come apart. What it's doing right now is should be bringing the traverse to the 0 point, which brings it over. Actually, it wasn't as noisy as it usually is. So you can see that it's dropped the plate into the drum. That push bar right there is pushing the plate up to some stops on the far side of the drum. And then it should start imaging, and you'll be able to see the laser actually hitting the plate. You won't see the laser from the actual laser itself to the mirror, but you will see it. Right, there you go, a little blue laser.
I see it.
Oh, yeah.
And that laser's making that plate, putting all the printing on that plate?
Exactly. It's kind of a think of it like an almost like a negative. So where it is not exposed, it will the image will come off.
Etching it off of there.
Exactly. In the old days, we used to use negatives with ultraviolet light. We'd put a negative over a photosensitive aluminum plate and draw UV light through the negative. And so where it was exposed, it would then get developed. And this is kind of a similar process, but using violet ultraviolet light.
Faster?
Much faster. We can produce a plate in about 2 minutes.
Wow.
So I noticed that on the plates over there, I mean, the images aren't raised up.
No,
so it
they're
gets
not.
wrapped around the drum, and then the ink gets on top of it.
Correct.
How is that ink not just making a giant smudgy?
Oil and water. The chemicals that we use to develop up the plate actually makes the unexposed areas receptive to water, while the exposed areas are not receptive to water. So therefore, the oil-based ink is able to adhere to the plate. And so the water, they have a water and ink balance out on the press. I don't know if you saw the water system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it runs off.
Basically,
except
just
for where.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
So it's is the area water receptive or is it oil receptive, which is ink?
Gotta learn chemistry.
Yeah. Now all the plates that are going to be coming through here will probably be pretty exposed because of the light. We can take out a plate and expose it to the light. As long as it's out for, say, 30 seconds or so, it won't harm the plate, but having the door open will expose the plate so that it basically will come out fogged. Possibly when it comes out the far end, maybe the far end of the plate might have a little bit of image to it, but the rest of it will be, everything on this edge here will be fogged.
So you order the aluminum's ordered with one color on it, and the laser etches out
Exactly.
whatever you want, whatever picture you want to put on there.
Exactly.
Do you
And
guys do printing on like customized objects as well?
we do not. That is usually done via inkjet, but we don't do that here. Basically, you can get anything printed as long as you pay enough money, or you know, buy the equipment that can do it. All of the names going, say, through the mail, stuff that you've gotten through the mail.
How much does this machine cost?
This was about 170,000.
Paid? Full?
Yeah, as of about a year ago. Yeah, we've had this in here for about 3.5 years now.
So it only took 2 years to pay it off?
Thereabouts, right?
Nice.
So,
It's like paying off a house.
yeah. Although the service contract, just to ensure, so the manufacturer will come out here anytime we break down, that costs about $36,000 a year. So, out of the drum. So what was happening was, as the plate was coming into the drum, it didn't sense that it was hitting the stops. So the vacuum would not initiate in the drum, so the plate just kept dropping back. And the push bar would just keep pushing it, the plate would drop back. Push bar would push it, on and on, till it aired. And that's actually just my signal telling me I'm out of plates. So this is the last plate here that will image. Magenta, yellow, and black, everything that you need to make 4-color process.
4 plates per color.
One plate per color, 4 colors, make 4-color process. You've heard the term CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And
You want this closed?
if you want to, yeah. Doesn't have to be. As you can see, actually it didn't get as badly exposed as I thought. So what it does is the plate, unfortunately I can't open this up because this is safety bypasses. The plate comes through here and you can feel this on the top. It's a heater. Heats it up to about 400 degrees. It's got like a little polymer coating over the top, and that actually melts it off. And then it'll come through scrubbers that kind of scrub that off. Then it goes through a developer, which will then develop up the image where it has been exposed. And then we have what's referred to as kind of like a gum tank right here, which is kind of like putting a protecting finish over the plate so that way it's kind of protected until it gets out on the press.
It's like ink, but it's not. Can I keep one of these for a sample?
Sure.
Can I keep this one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ink is actually putting the color down. What's the benefit of having different colors, 4 different colored plates, just for
Well,
identification? Or?
yeah, well, actually, you make a color separation. What our computers do is our computers via RIP will make the color separation so that cyan, you know that yellow and blue make green. So therefore this green area has a heavier image on the cyan and on the yellow, but almost nothing inside the magenta or the black area. So even though all the plates will look the same, you can see that there we do have labels on the plate. It'll tell you what color it is, cyan, magenta, yellow, or black. Should be, we have our little color tags.
Maybe you got it exposed.
That's possible.
Where?
Right there. So that way we have, we have identifiers so that the guys out, and he can also, by telling what the densities of the color bar, he knows whether or not he's got his balance correct, balance of the colors.
I was wondering what those color dots were for.
Right. And unfortunately, we don't use those on the web press because the image on the web press is just so tight, we don't even have room for the color bars. So it's a little more difficult on the web press side because they're having to do everything a lot more manually than they do out on our sheet fed. Even our computers also send out what's referred to as SIP3 data from our server over to our sheet fed that actually sets his ink keys for him. Now all it does is it gets him into a neighborhood, but our software will kind of read how much image there is, and then we'll create a profile that will open up his ink keys more over here than it will over here, you know, for say like a green image. There are times that we'll print, say like a postcard, we'll print a large heavy coverage postcard on this side, and then this side will just be a return address. So what it'll do is it'll shut off almost all of his ink over here while opening it up over here. Kind of presets his ink for him, but what that does is it makes a faster make ready. Make ready is the term that printers kind of use when turning over a job from one job to another. You basically have to make ready the press. So, and the longer that takes, the less money you're going to make. The faster you can do a make ready, the more jobs you can actually put on press.
It's all about the money.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
That's right.
Hate to say it, but
Why?
we're not here for fun.
That's right.
We're here to make a living. So, any questions about the machine here or
No, sir.
making of plates? Cool. Let's go ahead and go on into the computer room. And we'll see if we can kind of tie this all together. And just as a side note, this is our wide format inkjet. It's Canon IPF 8000. Basically, it's 12 colors that basically puts out an image like this in order to simulate 4-color process, so that we know that what that looks like is what should be coming off of our press. And feel free to sit on the counters if you guys want. Make yourself comfortable. Excuse me for just 1 second. The only numbers I've got. This is the nerve center of our pre-press department. This, for all it looks, is our server. Nothing really fancy other than the fact that it's running OS X server. It's got about 1 terabyte of hard drive space. This is where we keep all of our current jobs. We have a folder in here referred to as current works. And these are all the jobs that are currently in-house or may have just cleared through. It's things that we've worked on probably within about the last week. When a job comes in, we will take it. We'll create working folders, art folder, customer originals, a fonts folder, a proofing folder, an imposition folder, and then a PDF or EPS folder. Inside each one of those is where we will grab, these are JDF files. These are where we will grab some of the working files from. In the case of WebPress work, which is more like publication, magazines, newspapers, we will create full-page PostScript or PDF files from the customer's art. Our goal is to get our customers to supply us with PDF files, but if they don't, then we have to create them one way or another, because that's what we put into our workflow. The PDF files are then PostScripted and then put into an imposition program, which is on one of our computers over there. Everything radiates pretty much from this server. If we have any, this is kind of like a star configuration. You guys are familiar with computer networking a little bit. It's kind of a star configuration where everything just basically connects to our server. This computer here is our Rampage RIP. It is a workflow that costs around $50,000. It's basically nothing but a box and software. The workflow allows us to create impositions, and then we'll take the impositions and we will rip the files. Best way to describe a rip is RIP. It stands for Raster Image Processor. What it does is it takes the PostScript information from the files that we've created or received, and then it will break it down into 4-color process. Like this job right here, we can take the different images. That's what's going to be on the cyan plate. So in other words, that software right there creates the color separation.
And what's the imposition when you keep saying the imposition?
I'll show you when we get down there. If you look at these are imposition charts right here. So when you saw the plate back there for the web press, we'll have 4 pages on any one plate. So all the pages have to fall into a specific order, which is imposition. Okay. So if we're doing a book job, a 40-page book job, pages 1, 40, 10, 31, 30, 11, 20, and 21 fall onto one single printing plate. So we have to have a program that, as we flow in each individual page, can then take the pages and put them into order on a single plate in imposition. So we'll take the, let me find a WebPress job through here. These are all the jobs that we have currently, that's not a good one. Desert Saints, there we go. These are jobs that we currently have in-house. This was a Desert Saints, which is a Mormon publication. And you can see that we can create the color separation for the cyan plate, the magenta plate, the yellow plate, and then the black plate separately. If we turn on all the colors, you can see how it now looks like 4-color process. Let's tie into this one right here. So in the old days, we had color keys. After we made negatives of a color separation, we'd actually make colorized color keys, where we had little plastic overlays that were actually in the colors that we could then overlay so that you could see all the colors that make up the constituent image, color separation. Okay, where was I going with this? After we do our imposition, we create a PostScript file. The PostScript file is then put into our workflow. Our workflow rips it, creates a preview so that we can take a look at all of the different images. And also, we have created guidelines so that we know where our trims are. Excuse me for 1 second here. Okay. But I also know that when this book is all folded up, I just made these little blue lines on here. When this book is all folded up, that will be the fold, that will be the outside trim. This first one here will be the head trim, and then that will be the foot trim. So one of the things that we do in here is we try to make sure that all of the images are falling into the correct position so that nothing is going to get trimmed off. The last thing that we want to do is we don't want to see our type outside the trim edge. Because I'm sure you guys have gotten a newspaper or a book in the mail, kind of looked at it, and things are being cut off, or things are just generally too tight to the trim. Bad setup, bad pre-press, somebody screwed something up somewhere. What we're doing is we're trying to make sure that all of the images look balanced on a page, that there's enough buffer around, that if something is supposed to bleed, which bleed is the image going past the trim edge, if something is bleeding, that we have adequate bleed, and just generally make sure that what is being printed after it has been finished in the bindery and you're looking at that finished product, that it's pleasing to the eye. So there's a lot more deliberation that goes into printing, especially in the setup, than just outputting files. There's a lot of thought process that goes into it. So after we have taken it, ripped it, previewed the proof, we can send out a plate. I bring up that window, and all I do is click the button, and it shoots plates out the other end. So that makes it easy. Before we had this Rampage system, it was a little bit more difficult. We would actually create the impositions a little bit more manually, check them, and then have to send them out almost like you're printing to a printer. But since we were able to get this workflow about 3 years ago, it's made us look a little bit better, a little bit more professional, and made our job easier. So better living through software.
Now, you guys, your price range, is it like mid-range, lower, high?
Well, if you're looking at printing in volume, web printing, which is the newspaper publication end, that is much more cost-effective when you're talking about large runs. The booklet that we were just doing in that real estate one, that right there, let me get a copy of this real quick. Hang on, I'll be right back. Now, this is the real estate book that you guys saw, our Komori printing and what I've been doing the examples on. Nice 4-color process. This is referred to as a perfect bind. We're going to do in the area of, say, 2,000 copies of this. These guys are going to pay $10,000. So, you're looking at, $8 a magazine for these guys to do it. Now, if we were able to do a comparable book in roughly that size out on the web press. Now, keep in mind, the printing is going to be a little bit more coarse. It's not going to have the glossy look to it, but it's not necessarily going to look bad. It's going to look more publication-like. But if we were doing this many pages, this is going to cost, say, $1,000 instead of $10,000. So you're looking at, you're getting what you pay for. If you want really top quality and, you're willing to pay for it, well, you can get some really nice work. But then again, if you just need to get something printed and you're in publication, newspaper, magazine, this is much more cost effective. It still gets the ink on the paper. It still looks relatively good. But it's not going to have the pop that sheet-fed work is going to have.
Now, those rates pretty standard industry-wise? Are you guys on the higher end?
We're actually on the lower end. We kind of think of ourselves as kind of like the Kinko's of web printing. We will have people bring in a publication at 3 p.m. on Monday. We will have it out on press at 6 p.m. We can turn it around very quickly, very cost-effectively. So, as far as web printing is concerned, we're actually on the lower end of the scale as far as pricing is concerned. When it comes to sheet-fed, however, we're probably about mid-range. The old adage of you get what you pay for really applies, especially in printing. So, any questions, Ed? The easy answer to what happens when we get crap files is it costs you more money. If you want to make sure that your job is printed the way you guys want it to be printed or you expect it to be printed, you need to make sure that the files are prepped properly. I received a publication not too long ago. Person brought it in, seemed like they knew what they were talking about. I opened up the file and it was done in PowerPoint. That's not exactly publication, level work or professional graphic arts. We were actually able to make it work. We were able to create a PDF file. I had to do a little bit of, magic with it, but we were able to get it printed. But in terms of, was it correct? Well, it's a little hard to read because I wasn't sure what they really wanted. Did they intend it to be 8.5 by 11? Did they intend it to be a full bleed? I had to take my best crack at it and try to figure out what they wanted and prep the files that way. If you're submitting work that is set up correctly, good PDF files at the correct size, good resolution, actually the images are color adjusted, the photographs have good contrast to them. Your jobs will sail through here. They will get on press faster, they'll get on and they'll actually look better than things that are junk. Someone asked something about where to look for low resolution images. I mentioned high school jobs. High school jobs are notorious for sending us crap files. And when they do that, we have no choice but to kind of print what they've given us. Now we'll go through, we'll adjust some of the really worse aspects. I've seen people will take a photograph, do it in color. It'll be a guy with a red shirt standing underneath a tree at noon in the middle of the daylight. What ends up happening is when that's converted over to black and white, all you see is basically just a complete black silhouette in a gray background. And you'll have absolutely no detail when it comes out on press. So you have to make sure that you've converted the pictures over to black and white or to grayscale or adjusted for good color contrast. That's the only way that you're going to make sure that you get what you want when it goes to press.
So back to the PowerPoint job, they had to pay more money for the extra work that you did.
And we charge $65 an hour. Luckily, I know this sounds a little, like I'm tooting my own horn here, but luckily we know what we're doing, and we actually were able to, impose it within about an hour.
And then do you send something back to the client to say this is how it's going to look, or?
Well, it depends upon what's going on with the job. If it's a one-shot job, we're never going to see them again. They were just wanting to get something printed. We'll probably let them see a quick proof, and that's it. But if it's someone that we know is going to come back time and time again, we'll work with them more and say, look, you guys really need to start using InDesign or QuarkXPress in order to make sure that your files are good, because we don't want to have to go through this each and every week, every month. So it depends upon, we know that high schools aren't going to be the best quality, so we kind of approach it that way. They want it quickly. They want to be able to drop it off in the morning, pick it up the next day. So we will turn it around quickly. Whereas this job right in here, in order to get all of these things done and done well, took us about a week in pre-press in order to make sure that we had absolutely everything nailed.